You know, have you ever asked a question or been asked a question by friends or family? You know, are we truly in the end times? Are we seeing the signs that Jesus could come back soon? So today I wanted to dive in deep. We'll keep it quick. It's not going to be the longest video, but 10 signs with absolute detail to show you why we are very, very close to the return of Jesus Christ. 10 signs indicating for me, and gives a very, very strong indication that we're very, very close. But here's what I'll ask you to do, like I always do. If it's your first time here, you know what to do to become part of the family. Get a quick cup of coffee, have a sit down and listen, and by the time we get to the 10th one, you will kind of, without a shadow of a doubt, you will know and you will have an understanding that we are very, very close to the return of Christ. Remember, smash that like button, share this out to people, you know, that ask that question. But as I compress them together and give you the reasons why, through what Christ said, we're very, very close. And we'll start with the 10th one, the first one, and Jesus spoke of this himself, you know, the rise of false messiahs and false religions. And it's in Matthew 24 where Jesus says, "For many will come in my name, saying that I am Christ, and he will deceive many," or they will deceive many. And all we have to do is look at the last 50 years, and I've done a little bit of research on this. In the last 50 years, we've had over 1,100 leaders claiming that they are the Christ. There's even one at the moment, one pastor in the Philippines, who said that he is Christ incarnate. So many of these kind of false messiahs have been happening, and they've got really, really kind of more over the last kind of 80 years, 90 years, even the last 50 years. The progression's been so high. Obviously, the next one we're looking at here is the wars in the world. And Jesus said in Matthew 24, "And you will hear of wars and rumours of wars. See that you're not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom." Now, I always look to the early 1900s. To me, the trigger was World War One and World War Two. They were the precedent of things starting to pick up. But when we look since 1945, right, if we look at a 50-year period from 1945 onwards, there's been over 300 wars that happened since then, and that included over 15 nations. And then we have all them nations that have nuclear weapons. Every day it just seems like we're ticking closer to a world war, and we're seeing it on the news today, obviously with everything that's going on with Russia, Ukraine. It just seems like they're increasing more. Now let's be honest, war has been happening since going all the way back to Cain. From that point onwards, there's always been some sort of war, but it's just happening more frequently. A big one we're seeing at the moment is an increase in hunger. And Jesus said as well in the same parable, that in the same part of Matthew, and there will be famines and pestilences. And when you do a little bit of research, you come up in the New York Times, where it's reported that there are 40,000 deaths every day in the world due to malnutrition. So we're seeing hunger all over the place. They also reported that 90% of all babies born in the next 20 years will be born in countries that are least able to feed them. Now, that actual report was done in 2011, so we're just saying that was 12 years ago, so it's just got worse since then. So we can see there, even with those three signs, a real increase in each of those three. The next one we see is something that's been on the news all the time, and we're seeing it around the whole climate change agenda. Jesus spoke about earthquakes in various places, in the same place in Matthew 24, and there's been a massive amount. It says here as well, and one of the things that I was researching, that historians have calculated that earthquakes have increased more than 2,000% since Columbus discovered the New World. Even in the last 50 years, there's been a 160% increase. So things are kind of rapidly moving forward. Now, what happens with earthquakes? We see all the floods that can happen from earthquakes, be tsunamis. All of that is increasing. Another one we're seeing, another sign that we see, is incurable sicknesses and pestilences. And there's obviously many strains of things that are going around. We've seen over the last few years what's happened, but whether it be cancer, malaria, tuberculosis, and all types of sicknesses, whether it be man-made, which I think some are, or natural, we're seeing so many of those pestilences happening, and it's killing everything. Obviously with the whole famine side, we're seeing that everywhere as well, whether it be because of the weather or because of pestilence that's actually killing the crops in terms of locusts and that. It's just happening all over the planet. It's really happening everywhere. Something we see that you don't really see on mainstream news is the persecution of Christians, and Jesus spoke about that as well. You know, that people will be delivered up just because of his name, because we follow him. And we're seeing today that the most persecuted religion in the world today is Christianity. It's attacked on every front. There's countries that you can't be a Christian, they're getting killed because of their faith, in all different regions and different parts of the world. Happily and fortunately, we live in a country where that doesn't happen. In the West, will that change? We know there's a time period coming that Christians in that period of time won't be safe. People that get saved in that period of time. Something that's happening today, and these are the ones I wanted to focus on: a huge surge in wickedness. And Jesus said in Matthew 24:10, and then many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. This surge in wickedness has happened so subtly over the last maybe 20 years, 25 years. We're seeing it happening through TV, and it's just got in and it's crept in where you can't say that to anyone. We're seeing it today. You know, people feel a certain way, they may be confused over it, but if you say it, they get highly offended, and you know, the first thing they do is point to Christianity and Jesus, etc. They really go at it, at that. Another one is the love of believers, or the love of many, will grow cold. And Jesus said it as well in Matthew 24, and because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. We're seeing that that's happening today, that the church in not everybody, but as a whole, we're seeing many people, many strands of churches move away from the true gospel, rightly dividing the word, and they've gone on to strange and weird doctrines, and it's just caused absolute division within the body. So much so I've seen some stuff that is just way off the books and way off the marker. So we're seeing that the love of many will grow cold, and it's going to get worse and worse. Something else Jesus spoke about on the good side is world evangelism. And he said that the gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to the nations, and then the end will come. And this to me convinces me, that sign alone, because I believe that most of the world have heard the gospel. Now, just because they don't receive it, it doesn't mean that we're not at the end. There is people in far place lands that we cannot reach, or they may not have the technology, but I believe that God will send them protocols like angels, etc., and dreams to actually share the gospel as well to them that way. But I believe we're at the pinnacle of that. So I really believe that's the one true sign that has really come to fruition. And obviously the big one and the big key to all this was Israel in their land. And most of us know what happened in 1947, Israel becoming a nation again, or sorry, in 1948. In 1967 was the capital. I've done earlier videos where to show that the servitude of Israel from the day on that was given way back in Ezekiel to, for me, 2,520 years, finished in May 1948, and from that point on the clock has been ticking for Christ to come back. God is not slow in coming. He doesn't tarry. Everything is in its right timing. You know, we know that we don't know the exact time that Christ will come, but we do have a duty to advance the kingdom of God by sharing the gospel, and that's the stage that we are in now, is getting the gospel of Christ out. Now, when we sum all of these signs up, all of them, everything that I've said out there, whether it be wars or pestilence or famines, earthquakes, or spreading the gospel, the love of many growing cold, all of these are happening now. You know, in Thessalonians it says that, you know, when Christ coming back, when we see all these signs, it'll be like birth pains, or it will come on like a woman in birth. Now remember, when she goes into labour, it starts off with a short pain, increases with intensity and frequency, and we're at that point now where everything has happened on a daily basis. We can't keep up with the floods and natural disasters, climate change, you know, everything. We have all the different agendas, and you know, is there aid and everything. It's just happening so fast. Deception and the love of many grown cold, people becoming so cold towards each other. I brutally honestly believe the signs are obviously converging up to Christ coming back. And as I said there, we have a duty, because we don't know exactly when he's coming, to try get the gospel out and share it to as many as possible, and drop the seeds of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And they're the 10 signs. I know it's a long enough video than what I normally do, but if you go back over them, do a bit of research, and you'll find the answers that everything is increasing at the moment over the last 50 years with intensity and frequency. Know that Christ is at the door. He is so close. But while we're still waiting, we're still here, let's get the gospel out to as many as possible. And I finish up, I always finish in this, regardless of all the chaos we see going on, and we all have trials and tribulations and hard times, but remember that he's in control. And that's, even for me, it's been tough the last few weeks, personally speaking, with the stuff that's going on. And sometimes we just have to make sure that our eyes are focused on him and him alone. So remember, till next time, God's always in control, and keep the faith.